Hi, everybody. It's Laura Donnelly from Dancing with Ease, Body Brain Balance, and I'm here today with Matt Del Negro, and I am really excited. Uh, and so I have to pay attention to my ease. We have everything that you need to see about Matt is in the description, or you can click his links for history and the wonderful stuff he's done. Go to IMDb, look him up on YouTube, have fun. And today we're just going to talk about improvisation and how the skills learned in acting and doing improvisation can help your life be better.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to be here, Laura. Thank you for having me. And yeah, I mean, first thing I would say is about improv is just listening. And actually, I think good acting is good listening. So for me, what I've realized during this quarantine is I'm on a TV show that got paused after 3 episodes out of 8. And so we're home, and I haven't really been doing any acting. I did a table read the other day, like a virtual read. But other than that, I've been doing a ton of podcast stuff. And what I've realized is it's just such great practice for acting because you're sitting here actually listening to human beings and reacting off them, asking questions. It's a great form of improv. You have same thing. You have some preparation, like for you right now, a little bit about me, you've done your prep work, and then we just let it rip. And then the conversation is what it is. And in acting, the performance is whatever takes place between action and cut. So you do your prep work and you do a lot of it, but on the day you kind of throw it away and just listen. And hopefully you're supported by the work you've done.
I agree. I mean, dancing is like that. You work really hard. You try to be perfect in the studio. You get on stage, and somebody's not where they're supposed to be. Somebody doesn't say the line you expect. And like this morning, you were busy and you got stuck in traffic. But thank heaven for digital communication.
Yeah.
And I put in the comments. Maybe I shouldn't have talked about that you can't rehearse for life, except this is it. And what happens? What amazing things happen? I'm sure you've had things happen on stage that were never planned, that were better than any rehearsal.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, happy accidents we call them. There's the famous one I've talked about a lot, which is on the waterfront with Marlon Brando and Eve Marie Saint. There's a scene where they're walking through a park in Hoboken, and she drops her glove, and Elia Kazan didn't call cut, and Brando in the take that they used, he squats down, he picks up the glove, they continue the scene, and while they're doing the scene, he goes and he sits on a swing, but he's putting on this little dainty little white glove over his big hand, and it's talked about and all critiques about it and saying it's one of the greatest scenes in cinematic history. And the gist of it is that all of them just went with it and used what they have. And it's not like they planned it out before. Oh, you're going to drop the glove here, you're going to pick it up and put it on, and this is going to symbolize that this relationship is doomed because his big meaty hand doesn't fit into this dainty glove. And that's what people say after the fact. But in the moment, it's just, oh, you dropped your glove, I'm going to pick it up, and we're going to continue this just like we do in real life. And those are happy accidents, and they've happened, they happen hopefully all the time, but they don't usually happen if you don't do the prep work ahead of time. So you were saying dance, it happens for you in dance. I think it's just a part of life, whether you're parenting or you're doing whatever. I mean, if I look at the morning I've had, it's only 9:35 my time, and already, I apologize for being late, but already the things that I've had to do because we're doing some work at our house and a bunch of different things going on. It's just, yeah, it's certainly, as I was driving around this morning, I was thinking, oh, this is funny. We're doing something about, improvising through life. It's It's every day, all day, it feels like.
It is. And one of the things you talked about was listening and being able to listen so that you're right with the person instead of thinking about your lines, your story, your plan. But right here, right now, this is what's happening. Are there other tools that you use that help you stay in the moment so you can see the opportunities and take advantage of the things like the glove that were never rehearsed, that were never even thought of?
Yeah, one of the things, let me just close out my email just dinged, getting in the way of our listening. Yeah, one of the things is remembering to breathe is a big one, which seems really simple. The other, as I've said, is kind of that the prep work, like if you know what you're doing, if you go into things knowing what your plan is, then you can kind of let it go and have faith that everything's going to be somewhat okay. Um, in terms of tools, I mean, I would say, certainly with an interview situation, like with my podcast or for you here, it's just real curiosity. What I realized, because I've now been doing this for like 3 years with the podcast, which started as this little passion project. Um, I've gone through different phases where in the beginning, I just had people that I kind of knew that were pretty impressive. And I knew enough about them, and we would have these conversations, and they felt really alive. Then there was a certain point in the I don't know how many episodes in, if it was 60 episodes in or 100 or I don't know where it was, but where I started to think like, oh, I need to do more prep than I'm doing because this other person who's a journalist is doing all this. And sometimes I would, what for my particular show, what I would realize is um, if I almost over over prepped or prepped by listening to them on another interview, I would just go down the path that other person, the questions that they asked. I couldn't help it, but I would just be drawn to getting those stories. And for me, for the way my show is set up, I don't like that. My whole point is I don't want it to be the typical interview. I want to know enough about the guest that that I'm excited to talk to them. And then I just want to listen. And if they take it one way or another, I have a little bit of an arc in my head of where I want the conversation to go. I want to find out where they came from and how they got to where they are. But within that overall arc, if they're into some particular thing that day, I'd rather just be open and open and listening to what's alive for them on that day, because that will be more interesting, in my opinion, than some preconceived questions that I would have had for them that maybe they've answered, you know, 50 times on other interviews. It's like, well, then go listen to them on that interview. I'd rather this one be particular and specific to this, what's happening right now. So I think that's a long way of saying just have curiosity, whether it's in people or the activity that you're engaged in or the environment that you're in. By the way, I apologize for the sawing. I don't know if you hear that, but oh, you don't hear it. Oh God, it's so loud. We have some stuff being done here, and it's like I feel like I'm in a construction zone.
I mean, this is some of the stuff. And if it was loud, we would just deal with it.
Exactly.
Um, do you know, in a sort of succinct way, the things that allowed you to get to this place where you're comfortable, you're fairly comfortable not knowing what's going to happen?
I don't know if I'm aware fully. I would take a guess that a lot of my current attitude, which is kind of, when this was being set up, my producer of the show who was in touch with you was like, yeah, it's just about improv. And my answer, I'm like, that's fine. Okay, I got it. I'll just show up. I don't have to do anything for this. I'm just going to show up and talk. And I'm comfortable with that, I think, because I've just had not even years, decades of one thing is planned or hoped for or wished for in some way, when you go in for roles, and most of them don't happen. So I've developed a muscle of things happen the way they're going to happen. And, easier said than done. Sometimes when you're in the middle of it and you really want something and you can't help yourself from, if you audition for a role that's really something you really want, you almost can't help. Part of the visualizing of yourself in that role ends up being like visualizing, well, if I had this job, it could be a couple of years. I mean, it could be several years of your life. You kind of go down this path and then you just don't get it. And now you have to let all of that imagination go and go back to what you're doing. And so over time, I think I've learned to be more comfortable with that. And then I think just as a human, I've had, unfortunately, my wife's cousin, we found out, died tragically at the age of 30. This was in like 2007, I think, end of 2007. My cousin, at the age of 44 in 2009, both of them, those were out of the blue. We got in a car accident. I mean, I actually saw my wife and kids in a car accident. They were driving behind me, and I thought I saw them killed on the 405, and they were magically unscathed. My wife and I were, one night we took an Uber to our friends so that we could have some drinks. Ended up being a super mellow night anyway, so we kind of did the right thing. The Uber, it wasn't Uber, it was Lyft actually. The guy jumped out in front of traffic, saw two cars coming at us. We got hit. We were a little bit mangled. We were in the hospital overnight, but when it was happening, I thought, oh shit, this is it. Like, that sucks. It's like, this is not the way I wanted to go. But what that did, the combination of all these things is, I realized like every day we're lucky to be here. And if we're healthy, we're even luckier to be here. And nothing's guaranteed, whether it's in my career or in my life. And so, try to make peace with that in some way. And, it's not to say like when those cars were coming at me, I was pissed. I was like, I don't want to go right now, so that's the truth. On the other hand, the kind of this admission that like, I don't know. I mean, I had guys that I bartended with in New York City who were in the Twin Towers, 9/11 and died. They got up on a beautiful sunny day. It was a beautiful day in Manhattan that day. And they didn't come home, They didn't know that was the last day of their life. So like that kind of, I think just life, and I'm sure you have your version of that, and everybody does. Like it just stuff happens, and then you kind of go like, all right, well, I'm going to plan. I'm going to have some strategy. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to do the things I love to do. But, at the end of the day, there's something bigger than me out there that's, I can say, I'm going to do this all I want. I mean, you get hit by a car, you get, building blows up when you're in it. And that's probably not too good for your future, so.
These things you're talking about are things we can't control. They're
Exactly.
things that actually I keep thinking about surfing because I have several friends. I have one friend who talks about surfing your edge. So you push yourself to your edge all the time. You've been writing about surfing in your newsletters. And I look at surfing as like this thing, like you're going to get knocked off your board. How do you get back on? The desire is what you're talking about too. You have your plan, that's your desire. And I totally relate to the thing about, like, you put a lot of energy into an idea. And half the hard part is letting go of that imagined idea. And that,
yeah, go on. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, it takes practice to, I mean, it's sad. You have to be sad about it. It wasn't real, but you still have to be sad about it. And keep going, realizing that all these things happen from the outside and all you have is yourself. And that you can keep taking yourself forward. And I think we were talking about too, about any time any of us can die anytime. And I kind of think we've forgotten that in society.
Well, I think COVID was a big reminder.
Yeah.
I actually think that's why, that's one of the positives that came out of it. The whole globe is like, oh, we're vulnerable. I think that's maybe a good thing.
We should quit wasting time. You know, we should take care of things. We should be present with the people we love. The other thing about improvisation that I really like is when you are present, even with kind of inanimate things or the events of your life, and this curiosity. You know, you can say, like, your day didn't plan out the way you wanted it to, but you can say, I wonder why this is coming up this way. You know, it's a whole different feeling in your body than, I didn't want to do this today. You know?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things I wanted to, that you said that made me, I'm going to probably forget them now. I should have written them down. But anyway, the one that's most recent, you just said about, yeah, why did this happen right now? I have an acting coach who would say, and I think this is brilliant. When you go to her and start working on a role, she would say, we do a lot of Jungian dream work with her, where you're kind of pulling from your subconscious. And she would say, why did this role and this script hurtle through the universe and land in your lap right now? What are you grappling with right now that can inform your character? And what is your character grappling with that could help your life? And so it kind of makes acting and your life melded together, so that you're not like playing at some character. Oh, that was the other thing you said about having an idea of something, and you were talking about an idea of like a plan. But as an actor, what I find, and you know, my good friend that we kind of powwow about this stuff all the time, is you start a project and you have an idea of the character, and the further in you go, hopefully you start to let go of the idea, and it starts to become more fully complex and fleshed out, and not so much just this like idea of what you might think would be, you know, cool for this character, or what would be like, oh, this, you know, this idea. I can only say it's like an idea. It's like an idea, and it's usually not as good as it eventually gets, hopefully. There was the other thing I was just laughing was that you brought up surfing, because if my friends that I surf with knew that I was talking about surfing, I'm terrible. I mean, I'm horrible, but I'm really into it right now. And like for a few years now, I never really fully, you know, embraced it. I would go, but I never thought about it outside of when I was doing it, and I would enjoy it, but I was really, really terrible. Now, in the last month, I just somehow got the bug, and I've been going every day, sometimes 2 times a day, and the parallels to, and I'm getting better. I'm still terrible, but I'm getting better. The parallels to all of this are so, like, the parallels between surfing and acting are really, you know, and that's why I say, I think any activity has these elements, but with surfing, it's like, there's so much more to it that I've learned even in the last 2 weeks or month than the way I looked at the ocean before I started taking it seriously. And now it's like the same places I'm going, I'm actually looking at the water differently. It's kind of like when you go to a new city. Um, you know, when you go on vacation or something and you get there and it's all so new and you're kind of overwhelmed by all of it. And then after just like a week maybe, and you've been walking around, you've checked out some places, you've gotten the lay of the land, it's so different to you. The place is so different than you thought it was just 6 days ago. It's the same thing with like for me, what's interesting is like it's the same thing with these particular spots where we go surfing. All of a sudden, I was out last night at a spot that I used to not really go to and then recently went. And all of a sudden, now that I'm learning more about the sport and I'm a little bit more comfortable and I'm getting a little bit more of the lay of the land of that particular cove, it's like a different place. It's really interesting. You know, you're seeing it with different eyes. And it's the same thing with acting. I see things with different eyes than I did 25 years ago, you know?
I would imagine it's the same with your kids too.
Totally.
And what else I heard? What I heard in what you said was that when we are open to discovery, even in a familiar place or with a familiar person or activity, we can find new things, new meaning, new life, new, even see something you didn't see before. And this is, I think all of this is the gift of being present. And you know, and when you go to the cove, you know, you have kind of in the back of your mind, there's what you used to see, how you used to see it. And I think we can cloud our immediate present by focusing too hard on what was or what might be in the future. And so we miss right now because we're so excited about what might come down the road. But like when you're on that board, you can't be anywhere but right there, right?
Yeah. Well, we had something where one day, a couple weeks ago, I had gone out with one friend or on my own and whatever. I had made some advancements and then I was back with a group and I was taking a wave and I was like, oh, I'm getting it. And I totally bought it. And I came back and I told my friends, I'm like, oh, I had that. I was right there. And I was thinking, oh, these guys are going to see it now. And my friend goes, yeah, that's not what you want going through your mind when you're on the wave. These guys are going to see it now. And that's not like, you know, being present 101 is not thinking about what other people are going to think about you doing the thing. I love that link you just made to not only places, but to people that you see them. If you see them with like looking for discoveries, you can find new things about people that you've known for a long time. If you're willing to look at them in that way.
Yeah, to let go of, okay, this is what we talked about before. Like you rehearse and you plan and you lay down all of the foundation, but in the moment of the acting or the moment of life, you let go of all of that and say, what's here now? What's happening now? And all that informs you. It's like something you can stand on. Gives you, the more preparation you do, the stronger your foundation is. But I also loved what you said in the beginning about that if you planned too hard, you would get these questions in your mind that weren't alive in the moment. They were overthought. They were planned.
And on the flip side, if you don't plan at all, you'll be like me surfing. Which is like I went out there just thinking like, I'm here. Okay, what's going to happen? And that's why I got crushed for years because I never really took it seriously. I never bothered to learn. I didn't take it. Like you kind of, you know, there's like a, you know, the saying that through you get freedom through structure. It's the same thing. Like you look at it with surfing. I mean, it's really like that. For many years, I was just going out there like all over the place. And the results were that there was like barely any progress. And then the minute I said, okay, I'm going to make this a priority, all of a sudden there's progress, because not only did I go out there, I started looking at YouTube channels and seeing how they're describing what the waves are doing, seeing different techniques. Now, the next step is like, sometimes I'll see it. Like I went out with my friend's son, who's gotten pretty good. Last night, we were all three of us were there. My friend is not, he's not even as good as I am. His son is pretty good and a pretty good teacher. He's young. He's my son's age. And he, what was my point? I just totally lost the thread. What were we talking about? I just totally lost the thread.
Preparing, learning, setting a foundation.
Oh, that's what it was. He will give me great instruction. And sometimes he's like, you just got to, just get up and do this. And I'm like, I know what you're saying. I get it. I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm aware that I'm not doing that, but physically I can't do it. So my mind now, at least I know what I'm trying to do now. But a lot of times I can't do it. And then I'll see videos of us and I'm like, who's the old man that like looks like he's barely getting up? Like I see the kids just pop up like little cats. And then I see me and it looks like this lumbering giant who, is taking forever to get up. And that's not that I don't know what to do. That comes through practice and training. And it's like maybe one of the things I've realized is my hips are tight. So I've got to do things outside of the actual activity. As you would know, as a dancer, you have to do things to prepare your body so that you can do the things you need to do when you're performing. Same thing as an actor. Got to work on your voice. Got to work on your body. Like there's all of these elements that go into the thing. And when you do all of them, it's a tremendous amount of work, but the end result, if you do it well and you do it methodically and you do it really, specifically, is that when you do the performance, it looks like you're not working. And that's why everybody's like, oh, I could act, because when you see good actors acting, it looks like they're not doing anything. But it took a lot of work to look like they're not doing anything. And I'm sure it's the same for a dancer. I know that the work ethic is just crazy. What you do to prepare, and then we go to the theater and see you dancing and we're jealous, like, why can she be on her toes like that? Why can she jump like that and look so graceful? And it's because you put in a lot of hours to get that way.
Right. And then what you said is true too, is you build the foundation and you build the structure so that when you're in the moment, you can grab whatever tool you need. And so practicing and working on your hip flexibility you won't get ready to get up on the board and think to yourself, I need to articulate my hips differently. Your hips will just work differently because you gave them the tools and the skills and the freedom of movement to support you in the moment when you needed it. I think this has been really fun.
I've had a lot of fun talking to you. Yeah, it was great.
People have ideas. I hope they have questions. They have the Instagram. They can connect with you and follow your podcast and learn more about your work and be inspired. I've listened to several of the podcasts, and your guests are interesting, and what you do, how you be with them, allows them to really shine and share.
Oh,
and I think it's really special, and helpful and healing. And I think you have great topics that are out there. And
thank you very much for saying so. And thank you for originally, I believe you connected over email and sent a really, I loved your email. It was sensitive. It was smart. It was kind, generous about the podcast. And that's why I'm sitting down with you, because I was like, oh, I like the way you think. And as we're talking right now, I've really enjoyed this conversation. You're very smart and receptive and a great listener. Speaking of our original topic of improv, you're a great listener. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And I look forward to following your work and seeing you down the road. And the whole thing was an improv, you know. I stumbled on your podcast by accident, cleaning out my email. And
How do you do that? How does one do that? I didn't even know. Like, how did you?
okay, I was going through my emails and seeing things, and I found one. I said, "Oh, I'm going to read this because the subject was good." As it was from Marie Forleo, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to read this one again," and it referenced something that her husband Josh was doing, and so I went to the link that she had put in there, but the email was so old that the link didn't work anymore. But it said, "Go here instead," and I went there instead, and there was your interview.
Oh, the what which we did, yeah, the COVID one.
Yeah, yeah, about embracing uncertainty, which is also what improvisation is, which
Yeah.
is, and I think what I really enjoyed is how you guys fed off of each other in terms of acting and uncertainty and presence and rehearsing for your best life. You rehearse for your best life, and then you deal with what happens.
Yeah, yeah. Josh is great. He's a really smart guy.
Yeah.
And well, that's so cool. I love that you did say that in the email. It's great to be reminded of how you can't, yeah, nothing is like a straight line in this life. It's all, kind of connecting the dots, and they take you somewhere that you didn't expect to go, and that's kind of the beauty of it. So,
Well, have wonderful fun surfing, and
thank you.
I hope the house renovation goes really well.
I do too. I do too. Thank you. And happy 4th of July coming up this weekend. And thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Take good care.
All right. You as well, Laura. Bye.